Paranormal in Pennsylvania may discuss topics such as suicide, murder, and other potentially upsetting things. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome to Paranormal in Pennsylvania, where we discuss history and hauntings. This week's episode is going to throw it back to our very first season, our 4th episode, and we will be talking about the University of Pittsburgh. We covered this 3 years ago, and today it's just me, Sara, touching back on some new developments in the Pitt hauntings. We loved these hauntings so much when we talked about it, and for those that are listening that might not know, me, Erica, and David all went to the University of Pittsburgh, so we experienced the hallowed halls of Pitt firsthand. And the hauntings are very interesting to us because you do, of course, hear some of these legends as you're attending school there. But when I looked into things more and more, I kept seeing more hauntings coming to light, and that's why I wanted to jump back in, revisit this location, and talk about what students are reporting now. My favorite ghost at the University of Pittsburgh is the ghost in the student union. Apparently, this is the ghost of a ballerina, and she is said to wake you up if you're running late for something like a test. There's also scorned lovers in Bruce Hall. There's the University of Pittsburgh Cathedral of Learning, which is haunted, and Pitt, you have our haunted hearts. So if you want the full history and hauntings on Pitt from that first episode, you can go check it out wherever you're listening to this podcast. Just scroll way back in time. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into these additional hauntings. So, like I said, the Cathedral of Learning, we talked about that on the first episode, and it is a haunted location. It's belovedly called Kathy by the students, and it's at the heart of Pitt's campus, so it makes sense to start revisiting these hauntings by starting with Kathy. In the previous episode, we discussed the haunting of the ballroom there and the haunting of the early American room, and these are tied partially to the people that existed in these spaces, but also tied to some of the objects there. For example, in the early American room, there was a quilt and a rocking chair that are said to be haunted by the previous owners that donated them. Now, there's even more hauntings here, and this one really caught me off guard. There have recently been claims that the whole building itself is haunted. Students have reported seeing shadow figures walking through the halls and hearing the sound of footsteps even when no one is around. Now, as a Pitt student, I spent a lot of time in this building. I'm not sure if I would have even noticed these things. It's a very echoey place overall because the building is made of stone, so I could see footsteps echoing. However, there are times where you'd be at Kathy late at night, maybe in the basement of it walking around, and I think if I heard footsteps in a situation like that, I would not assume they were echoing, and I would be absolutely freaked out. Thinking about the shadow figures, that one I can definitely see being paranormal here. I can imagine that maybe if you're a student there, you would see something out of the corner of your eye and, you might assume, oh, it was another student rounding the corner. But if you then also turned around that corner and saw that there was no one there, you could definitely chalk that up to the paranormal. Because there's so many people in Kathy at any given time, I think both of these hauntings could be really challenging to actually experience. I think people that are there early morning or people that are there for night classes would be the people most likely to experience it. Or maybe even summer courses, because there are less people there. I'm not saying that they don't happen. I'm just saying that me personally, I never experienced anything that I would have considered a haunting while I was in Kathy. The next two places we're going to talk about are actually haunted dorms. The first is Ruskin Hall, and we did not cover this in the previous episode. We covered Bruce Hall, which is a dorm. This dorm building is for upperclassmen and it's apartment style. There's a ghost here that's known as the Ruskghost, because it's called Ruskin Hall, and apparently this ghost is fond of clapping. This might sound like a cute haunting, but imagine waking up in the middle of the night because something is clapping over your dorm bed. That sounds absolutely terrifying to me. But it's not just that, because people report that this ghost will actually turn off speakers that are playing music. With the clapping and the music both being auditory in nature, it makes me wonder about who this ghost might be. It's almost as if the ghost doesn't like the noise of the speaker and wants to turn it off, but yet the noise of the clapping is okay. Or maybe they're just trying to get the attention of the people that are living there in general. If you have theories about this, I would love to know what they are. Because to me, focusing solely on auditory is such an interesting way for a haunting to present itself. Hopping over to the next dorm that's haunted, we're going to Centre Plaza, which is also apartment-style dorms, also upperclassmen, and also said to be haunted. Residents report that the ghost here is so active that something happens to them every few days. Now, I didn't hear anything about Centre Plaza being haunted while I was there, and every few days is very frequent for something to happen, so I cannot imagine living with this. Now you might be thinking, okay, so you hear a creak or you see a shadow figure every few days, but it's definitely more than that. People that live there say that these hauntings can be anything from beds inexplicably shaking in the middle of the night to actually seeing the ghost out of the corner of their eyes. Now, seeing the ghost out of the corner of your eye is one thing, but actually having them wake you up with shaking your bed is another, and that sounds absolutely terrifying to me. Again, this is a situation where students aren't getting sleep, which is really interesting because a hallmark of college in general, people always say, oh, college students don't get any sleep, whatever. But here it's paranormal interference that's actually causing that lack of sleep. I think it's interesting because it almost seems like this is two different ghosts potentially to me. I think shaking beds is a very active haunting, and then just appearing, in the corner of one's eye is more of a passive haunting. Maybe it could be the ghost is more active at night or feels more comfortable interacting when people are asleep. I don't know, but I'm wondering if this could be two ghosts. An interesting theory that I saw is that the Ruskghost and the Centre Plaza ghost are one and the same, and it's just a ghost that moves around between the dorms and haunts the students. That's definitely an interesting theory. I wonder how that could tie to some of the other haunted dorms that we covered in the first episode, or if this is exclusive to the upperclassmen apartment-style dorms. If you went to Pitt, first off, hail to Pitt, and second, we want to know your experiences. If you are currently living in Ruskin Hall or Centre Plaza, please let us know if these hauntings are happening to you. I think they're incredibly interesting, and I loved taking some time to briefly go back and take a look at these new hauntings of Pitt. If you're interested in the first episode, like I said, get it wherever you're listening to this podcast. Just throw it all the way back to season 1. We talk about tons of interesting things from, affairs to, like I said, ballerinas to haunted objects. So there's definitely a lot in that episode, and we put our whole hearts into it. If you have a location that you want us to revisit or a new one that you want us to cover, you need to let us know. You can find us on social media at Paranormal in Pennsylvania or email us at paranormalinpennsylvania@gmail.com. Tune in next Thursday to see what history and hauntings we either visit the first time or revisit next. Stay spooky, my friends.